Okay, let's dive into one of the most shocking ideas in the entire Old Testament. It's a message from the prophet Amos, and trust me, it's going to turn everything you think you know about worship completely on its head.
Just let that sink in for a second. This isn't some random critic talking. This is supposed to be God's own words about the very festivals and events designed to honor Him. I mean, how is that even possible?
And that right there, that's the central mystery we're going to unpack. How could a whole nation be doing all the right religious things, checking all the boxes, only to find out that God despises every single second of it? The answer is, well, it's both shockingly simple and really, really challenging.
So the first piece of this puzzle is this huge gap between their religious life and their, actual life. It's the classic case of saying one thing in church and doing the complete opposite out on the street.
And I mean, look at this list. They had the whole shebang. Amos lists 7 different things they were doing. Feasts, special meetings, all kinds of offerings, even sacred music with harps. If you were just looking from the outside, you'd think, wow, these are the most devout people on the planet.
But here's the kicker. Their public worship was basically just a show. It was totally disconnected from their private lives, which, as it turns out, were filled with injustice, greed, and taking advantage of the poor. It's like they were singing praises to God with one hand and crushing their neighbors with the other.
So this is absolutely crucial to understand. When Amos talks about insincere worship, he's not talking about, not feeling enthusiastic enough or singing off key. No, he's pointing to a massive ethical failure. Their actions outside the temple were making their actions inside the temple a complete lie.
So you have to ask, how did it get this bad? How did their worship get so broken? Well, this wasn't some overnight problem. As it turns out, this thing had deep, deep historical roots.
The rot really started centuries earlier with a king named Jeroboam I. Basically, for political reasons, he created his own customized version of their religion. And that just opened the floodgates for later rulers, like Ahab, to start mixing in all sorts of pagan stuff. By the time Amos shows up, it's this corrupted mess, a total blend of their real religion and these pagan fertility cults.
And this was Jeroboam's exact 4-step plan for creating a corrupt religion. First, make it convenient. Then, create your own idols. Appoint your own priests who weren't supposed to be priests. And finally, just invent your own holidays. It was a religion designed by humans for human convenience, not on God's terms. A top-to-bottom counterfeit.
Okay, so if God hated all their songs and their sacrifices and their festivals, what did He actually want instead? Well, thankfully, Amos and the other prophets were crystal clear about the alternative.
This is, hands down, one of the most powerful lines in all of prophecy. The replacement for all their noisy, empty religion isn't better religion. It's justice. It's righteousness. And not just a little trickle of it either. He says it should be like a mighty, unstoppable river that just transforms everything it touches.
And Amos wasn't just some lone voice shouting in the wilderness. The prophet Micah said the exact same thing. What does God want? Justice, kindness, and humility. It's pretty amazing when you think about it. 2 of those 3 things are all about how we treat other people.
Now, to be super clear, the prophets weren't saying, get rid of all sacrifices and festivals. Not at all. Those things were commanded. What they were rejecting was this idea that you could separate the rituals from the part of the agreement that said, hey, be good to each other. The 2 were always meant to go together.
And this brings us to the biggest reason, the real core of why Israel's worship was so messed up. It wasn't just what they were doing, it was about their whole idea of who God was. They had completely fundamentally misunderstood who they were dealing with.
This contrast says it all. You see, Israel had come to see God as manageable, predictable, kind of like a divine good luck charm that you could control with the right rituals. But Amos paints a totally different picture. A God who is sovereign, who is wild, and, let's be honest, who is dangerous to anyone who thinks they can box Him in.
And that was their fatal mistake. They literally thought God was a pet. They believed if they just threw enough sacrifices and sang enough songs, they could keep Him happy and satisfied, all while they went on living however they wanted.
But Amos just takes that comfortable little illusion and shatters it. He uses these 2 terrifying, powerful images to show them the true nature of the God they thought they had on a leash.
First, God is a warring lion, and we're not talking about some majestic symbol on a flag. We're talking about a predator that roars right before it strikes.
Amos warns them that God's judgment is going to be like a lion devouring its prey, leaving almost nothing behind.
And second, he's a thundering storm. You see the very forces of nature they were worshiping in those pagan gods. Amos says, nope, that's actually Yahweh's power, and that same power could be unleashed on them in judgment.
You know, C.S. Lewis captured this idea perfectly in the Chronicles of Narnia with Aslan. The people of Israel wanted a God who was safe, but Amos was there to remind them that the true God isn't safe at all. But he is good, and his goodness demands justice.
And that leaves us with a pretty heavy question to think about, doesn't it? What happens when our own image of God becomes too tame, too predictable, too safe? If Amos is right, the consequences are absolutely terrifying.